me that would probably get me unelected, Steve Griffin. So many great memories sitting right here in this room. I want to start out just by, since I have free reign to talk about anything I want to talk about, I just want to reflect on, this is home, and I want everybody to reflect with me on how very, very blessed we are. I cannot tell you, as I have an opportunity to see other parts of the state, and I see, I go to conferences with legislators from other parts of the country, and every time I come home, I am reminded how very lucky we are to live in this community. And we have so much to be grateful for. We've got some people here representing our schools, and the reason that we live here, that my family lives here, is because of the schools. Now, you have a lot more students than they did when my children went to school. And where's Mary? Mary! Oh my gosh, you're another person who can tell stories. Mary and I had kids, elementary school kids in Lewisville School District, and we were big PTAers, and that's where I got my best political training. You talk about, there are some very interesting debates and discussions in PTA, and nobody holds back. It gives you great debate skills. And as far as my bio, those of you who don't know me, my background, I won't say an old teacher, I am a former teacher, so of course I'm passionate about education. Served, and it was kind of a fluke. I never planned on doing this. I wanted to be a teacher and a mom, is all I ever wanted to be. Taught school and had 5 kids, so accomplished the goal. I'm married to a wonderfully patient, understanding man who puts up with all this stuff that I do. And really, going back, Mary, we were PTAers together, and I was real involved with community education, was doing some adult literacy work, and the State Board of Education went from being an appointed board to an elected board, and people said, and I've done licking and sticking for other candidates and really enjoyed, campaigning and stuff, but never planned on being a candidate. People said, oh, you need to run. In fact, anybody here remember Eddie Childs over in Fort Worth? I'm mad too, Eddie. Fran Childs and I go way back, and Eddie Childs always liked me for some reason. He was a crusty old guy. I just adored him. But he was one of the first people that called me and said, yeah, you need to do this. It's right down your alley. And I said, are you kidding? I've got, my kids were 2, 3, 5, 7, and 9. And, it cost money to run a campaign. I didn't have any money, and I'm flattered, but, I gave him all my excuses, and he said, I'll help you raise money. Don't worry about that. You just go down there and fight for us. And that was it. That was my first campaign. Spent 4 years on that board and learned quickly that the real meaty issues and decisions are made by the legislature, not by the state board. And so a number of factors went into that decision, but ran for the Senate, won, and I've represented my district has shrunk because our population growth has been so tremendous in this area. But my first district was 13 counties, Denton, Tarrant, and 11 rural counties to the west. They redistricted, and it shrunk to Denton, Tarrant, Dallas, and Ellis, portions of each of those. Then when the population grew and they redo the lines again, I now have Denton and Tarrant counties. So it keeps shrinking as our population grows. And I guess the greatest challenges that I face representing this area are our growth challenges. We've got people move to this community because we've got good schools. We've got a lot of young families, and they're willing to fight the traffic and get to work, but if their children are in a good school district, safe streets and neighborhoods, we've got a wonderful, I don't hesitate to go out walking at night. And my grandchildren, now can you believe a 40-year-old like me is a grandmother? But I don't worry about my grandchildren being outside, and that's so unique, and we are so blessed to have that. We have an economic engine right here, and I represent half of the city of Denton and down to the county line in Denton. Tarrant County, I represent pretty much all the suburbs and half of the city of Fort Worth, the northern suburbs, Grapevine, Keller, Southlake, but Alliance Airport, DFW Airport. I have more Fortune 500 companies in my Senate district than any other. I've got just the economic engine of the whole state is right here. And so issues that are very important to me are making sure that we keep the kind of environment in Texas that encourages business to come to Texas or to build a business in Texas. And I base a lot of my decisions, especially on the Finance Committee, on that very fact. Now, I brought a prop. I didn't bring a speech, but I brought a prop. I don't know how many of y'all saw this. The Economist magazine, it was a couple months ago or so. But it says, America's Future, California versus Texas. And it is fabulous. And it is kind of the theme that I want to share with you. Everything that you could do right as far as attracting business and staying healthy economically, we have done in Texas. Everything you could do wrong, they did in California. And California, look at them, $26 billion budget. I was with their California Senate Finance Committee chairman last summer, and he thought, and at the time it looked like a $40 billion budget. Now they've made some cuts and done some things, but Texas we have had more jobs created in Texas in the last 2 years than every other state combined. And that doesn't happen by accident. We are doing it right. We don't overtax our businesses. We don't overregulate our businesses. And yet we focus funds on investing in our future. Again, I'm biased toward education, but I think probably the most important investment that we make in this state is in our classrooms. That's our future. That's our future workforce. And I could invite me back to give my whole education talk if I can really on it. And then there are doctors here. I've got a whole other talk on health care, which don't get me going on what they're doing federally on health care. It's a disaster, my humble opinion. But going back to what's going on in Texas, I have served on the Finance Committee now for 12 years. I'm the top-ranking Republican on the Finance Committee, and since we dominate the Finance Committee, I have a strong voice in how we spend our money. And I try to remind people that every penny we spend, somebody worked hard to earn. I have found that if you explain to people why it's important to invest in certain areas and why some other things may have to fall by the wayside, people generally understand. I mean, unless it's their program, sometimes they get upset. When you're on the Finance Committee, people are constantly knocking on your door to sell a great idea, a great program that the state needs to do. And some of them really are good. And I chair the Senate's Health and Human Services Committee, which has by far the largest chunk of our budget. A lot of things sound good, but it's kind of like our own households. I mean, what do we have to pay for this year? Well, we've got to pay for tuition, and we've got to pay for, the doctors and dentist bills, and that new sofa that we want, we might not be able to buy this year because times are tough. And we have to make the same kind of decisions when we're looking at our budget process in Texas. We have, for those of you who may be new, I don't see anybody that looks real new to this area, but if you are, we in Texas operate a little differently. According to our Constitution, unlike most other states, we meet for 140 consecutive days every other year. And then the legislators go home, and we live under those laws that we pass. And I love it. We have citizen legislators. This is not a profession. We get paid. Anybody guess? I love when people come up to me in the grocery store and say, we paid you all entirely too much. I hope they're thinking I'm a congressman or something. But our monthly pay is $600 a month before they start taking out. That's what I made when I taught school 100 years ago. And that will never change, by the way, because it will only change by a vote of the public. And the last time the vote came up, that was set when, I guess, $7,200 was a nice amount of money about 50 years ago. But every time it's come up before the public, they have way voted it down. They're not worth $7,200 a year. But again, I'm blessed to have a husband who's very supportive and allows me to do this.